What's going on, guys? We are nearing the end, as we said before. One more race left to go. Total carnage happened last weekend. It was nuts. We had sparks fly. I mean, it was crazy. I don't know how to say it or how to put it, but it was just wild. It was nuts, and some true colors shown. And it's hard to go any further than that. So let's go ahead and just jump into it. We're going to go ahead and start with the lineup. We'll go through the racing, and then we'll go through some of the news that happened, because a lot of sparks flew in the Xfinity Series, but we did also have some happen in the Cup Series as well. So let's go ahead and just dive in. So our qualifying, we had our top five was John Hunter, Riley Hurst, Cole Custer, Justin Allgaier, Sammy Smith. And we keep going on. Stage one, Allgaier got stage one. He was very strong. Austin Hill, fairly strong. John Hunter, Cole Custer was pretty good too on those racing. And for people that aren't fully familiar with Martinsville is one of these tracks. It's a small track, half a mile, if I recall. And you just beat and bang, especially with the fall race, because you're fighting for a spot to get in. So it's tough. It's interesting. It makes for good racing, good watching, especially if TV can catch what you're getting if you're not there. And then, like this weekend, it was really warm. It was unusually warm, so it wasn't as bad. So, moving on to stage two, Sammy Smith got the win. Josh Berry was up there. Myatt Snyder, Sheldon Creed. Sheldon Creed worked him his way up. So, going back into qualifying, Creed got 8th, and he's just staying around there. Stage one, he kind of dipped back down to 11th, but he was floating up there. Same thing with Josh Berry. Josh Berry qualified 12th, So going into the end of the race, we'll go ahead and lay out the race winner and your top 10, and we'll kind of go from there. And I want to jump into Cup Series, give you a run through, and then we'll discuss what happened, because it was a wild ride Saturday. So our top 10 ending the race, Parker Kligerman, 10th, Jeb Burton, 9th, Anthony Alfredo, 8th, Parker Retzlaff, 7th, Hemrick, 6th, Josh Berry, 5th, Riley Hurst, 4th, Sammy Smith, 3rd, Sheldon Creed, 2nd, Justin Allgaier, 1st. Got the win, wild win, fought it with Sheldon Creed. Somebody we don't see in here and he ended up finishing, they wrecked him out, I think. So he finished, I'm trying to find him here, guys, Austin Hill, 21st. So that was a big beating and banging between Austin Hill and Sheldon Creed, pretty much. But let's go ahead and dive into it. I know I said I was going to go into it, but this is a little too juicy not to go into it. So, as we were saying, Sammy Smith got the pole. There was a lot of beating and banging. It wasn't surprising to see a lot of this, especially because you have guys that are fighting for that final spot in the championship four. John Hunter got locked in on points. Allgaier was fighting back and forth, up and down. We had a big wreck with 6 left to go in the race. And that's kind of what set everything up. First and foremost, in that race, Sheldon Creed overcooked at one turn, and he got hit from the rear end from Austin Hill. Didn't really do too much to the cars. Austin Hill's car was a little beat up, but then keep going. They kind of cycled back around in this big wreck that happened, and it was Hill and Creed on the top, or in the top 2. Restart, and we're going to a overtime finish. They actually had to red flag this race to clean it up because there was so much speedy dry and fluid on the track. But then going forward with that, it kind of, they had enough laps that they could have run more than 6 laps. So they let it cook down to overtime, which I think is silly. NASCAR's got to figure out a way of, when it comes down to the last 20 laps or so on a race, that you're not counting caution, because it'll give more, I think it'll give more bang for your buck, more interesting of a race. Not, let's just put it last to the end and see everybody wreck them out. Let's see some skill happen and go from there. So, going with that, Cole Custer, got into some wrecks. He was collected in that last big lap. That was the 16th caution of the race. So, I mean, when they interviewed him, he was like, man, I couldn't get this car going. It was up and down, but he fought, and, give it to him. He fought for his playoff life, and, I'll give it to him. So we're going into what happened in that final, 2 laps or so. So they restart, and they're beating and banging and fighting. Austin Hill and Sheldon Creed, that is. Well, Sheldon Creed's on the bottom, and they're going. Austin Hill decides to drive in and drive down on Creed, and he spun himself. He wrecked himself pretty much. It's interesting to see that, because going back to that one that I was talking about where Austin Hill rear-ended Creed cooked it, and I'm getting this information from Door Bumper Clear, but the SMI data showed that Hill actually sped up like to rear-end Sheldon Creed in that moment, I guess, to push him out, spin him out, whatever. So I think some of that bad animosity, bad blood started there, and then you move over into the final laps of this race where they're beating and banging. Austin Hill comes down, he spins himself out. Allgaier comes in on the bottom, and just, Creed and Allgaier kind of bouncing off each other, and Allgaier beats Creed by, it was something crazy. Small. I think it was like 0.032 seconds. Beat Creed to get his win, to clinch himself in. Sheldon Creed was going for that win. He was going for that final spot. I don't think he did anything wrong. I think Austin Hill came down. I think Austin Hill had a little bit of, a privilege issue, which we're going to dive into that. We're going to dive into that after. I want to kind of cover the ending of the races and championships, and then we'll go and play into what happened. So tune into that later on in this podcast. So let's go ahead and move over into the Cup Series qualifying. Our top 5 for qualifying for Cup Series: Kyle Larson 5th, Denny Hamlin 4th, Chase Briscoe 3rd, Ty Gibbs 2nd, Truex 1st. And it's like, man, Truex and Denny Hamlin are good at this track. They're going to fight. They're already up top. Let's see what happens. I don't think anybody else is going to get in. I mean, I kind of knew Buescher wasn't going to get in. I thought Blaney had a chance, but I wasn't giving him too much of a credit for what he was doing. And, they get started. Stage 1, Denny Hamlin takes the lead. Blaney marched up to the front. I mean, we're talking Blaney started 11th, and he finished 2nd in Stage 1. Martin Truex Jr. 3rd. His car apparently was tightening up. It couldn't move. Briscoe was up there. Keselowski was 5th. So moving on to Stage 2, Blaney took it. Hamlin there. They were fighting back and forth. Truex down towards the bottom, 22nd. Truex hurt himself this one. The past few races, his crew, I will openly say his crew and his crew chief messed him up, and probably hurt his chances that he didn't have to worry about this race. But anyway, we'll keep going. Going into the final end of the race here, we had our top 10. Let's go ahead and go through those. Todd Gilliland 10th, Austin Cindric 9th, Chris Buescher, Christopher Bell, Kyle Larson, Logano 5th, Briscoe 4th, Denny 3rd, Eric Almirola 2nd. Ryan Blaney got your win to lock himself into that championship 4, and he ran it. He earned it. It was hard fought. So, going back and looking at a lot of this stuff, Blaney and Reddick were bouncing off each other during this race. Christopher Bell spun Ryan Newman, caused one of the cautions. Truex, rough day, got caught speeding at that end of this first stage, I believe it was, on his first pit at the end of the stage break. Got caught speeding. Sucks for him. He shot himself in the foot on that one. But also, it seemed like I saw somewhere that his car fell off the jack too, which is like, double trouble there. And they swapped out a tire carrier, I think, and a jackman. The jackman apparently worked with them before. They were confident in him. Did not help him here. Moving on to that, Almirola was pretty strong pretty strong car. He was doing really good, in my opinion, for what I saw. And then going forward, Joey Logano and Ty Gibbs. So Ty Gibbs finished 18th, and we talked about Logano finishing 5th. So, with that being said, Logano showed his true colors once again, and it was very annoying. And it comes down to what happened with Logano was, I think it was Hamlin, Gibbs, Logano. And Logano, he was doing this to, or Bubba was doing this to Joey a lot too. Every time you get in the corner, you could square up and hit that Cup car right in the center, and it's not like any of the other cars that were on kind of a narrower tire where you would end up losing it. So Bubba kept hitting him. And hitting him hard apparently. And then you saw Joey do it. He'd hit bam, 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 bam a couple times and ended up spinning Ty Gibbs out. Denny Hamlin, he did it back, I think it was 18 whenever he was fighting Truex, got into Truex. I think Logano kind of pushes it a little bit too far. Everybody was crying and complaining about the Hail Melon last year where, Ross Chastain just pretty much wasted his own car to go around the track. But it's okay to beat and bang and wipe somebody out pretty hard. And this was nasty. And then it caused Gibbs to get into Denny. And Denny complains, and he might have a right to or not, complains that it kind of costed him about going up there. Because he was moving up, but I think he was like 4 seconds behind on the race to get to the finish. But, we're talking, it was nuts. And then, again, Truex had it hard. William Byron, he squeaked by. My goodness. He was like 6 points to the good at the end of the race, but that's all he needed. And it was one of those races that was wild and nuts, but not as wild as the Xfinity Race. So let's go back to Xfinity Race here. And so we were talking about Sheldon Creed. Allgaier won it. Sheldon Creed and Austin Hill fighting. Well, come to the end of the race, Austin Hill clapping towards the pit crew of Sheldon Creed. I know he did it because he was frustrated, but it's like, dude, you're not racing that pit crew on the track. In the pit stalls, sure. And then RC, who has a history. I think he's a jerk. I saw him at Pocono a few years ago, and he thought his crap didn't stink. And you could tell he walked like that. And then, so he came out and said, I've never had a bigger idiot drive for me than Sheldon Creed. And it's like, I'm sorry. No disrespect to Kyle Busch because he's gotten better at it. But he's had some boneheaded moves in his younger. You have your son running for you who knocked Corey LaJoie out in Atlanta, I think it was last year, to go for the win. The only time his grandson won was whenever he's moved somebody out of the way, like wrecked them, dumped them, not racing moving, in my opinion, or rain. So he should have stepped back that. Then you had Andy Petrie, who is their competition director, I think is what his title is. It's with competition, vice president competition, something like that. They have video of him coming through and yelling at Sheldon Creed, like, why are you doing this? So they obviously are protecting Austin Hill as their golden child in Xfinity. You have Jesse Love coming in and taking the 2 car next year because Sheldon Creed announced he's leaving. Now we can see kind of why he's leaving because this has been toxic. It's almost like a Rackley war with Matt DiBenedetto and the trucks. But that one was kind of more kept, I think, not put out like this. And then, like everybody's been saying, PR nightmare. This was a stinking PR nightmare because you have both your owner and your competition VP arguing and fighting on one of your drivers who, whenever you go back and look at it, he raced them clean. And he was trying to win to get in. Austin Hill was trying to do the same thing because he wasn't going to make it on points either. So I don't fault Sheldon Creed for that. Austin Hill looks like a big jerk. After what he said, he pretty much spoiled it that Creed's going to JGR next year. We'll see. It's not confirmed, but he spoiled it. And somebody else made a comment that, Sheldon Creed's actions against him and how everything worked with the guys and how they acted after that race came from Friday when RCR had their open house or whatever they're calling it. And Sheldon Creed's like, I got a new opportunity next year. I can't be more than happy. I can't be more than happy to be going there. And, maybe that sparked everything there and how he started that. But still at the same time, you're an owner of a race team and you're going to act like that. You call the driver stupid. He's worked his butt off for you, and you're going to call him stupid when you've had a whole bunch of other people out there that just totally, went after, pretty crappy drivers in my opinion. I mean, I don't think Austin Dillon has nothing to write home about. He hasn't really been – he's won a couple races, but he hasn't been a force to reckon with. They go out and get Kyle Busch, but we got to recall back, Kyle Busch was there in the past, and RC, Richard Childress, took his watch off to beat the crap out of him. You had Kevin Harvick, who left toxic. You had Clint Bowyer left toxic. I mean, all signs point to Richard Childress being slightly in the wrong on this. I'm not going to call him out. I'm going full in the wrong. Everybody else probably has. But he's been in the wrong on a lot of this. I think he holds himself a little too highly. I think he thinks himself as a Rick Hendrick. And, I'm not a big fan of Rick Hendrick, but he handles himself better than that. Yeah, Rick Hendrick probably gets angry and PO'd, but you got to do that behind closed doors. And so people are like, oh, I'd want to be a fly on the wall this past Monday during the meeting. I don't think so. I think everything was put out and all the dirty laundry was already aired. I wouldn't be surprised. And I know some people that I've talked to were like, Sheldon Creed goes out there and within the first few laps over at Phoenix, dumps the 21 car into the wall and it keeps going. It wouldn't surprise me the way they're treating him. I mean, they're treating this guy like crap. And he's done really well for this team. Yeah, he hasn't won, unfortunately. But he's been up there. And yeah, he's made some boneheaded moves. But this is also Xfinity. This is also a learner or a AA team, AAA team. So when you think about it like that, I don't think he had any right to be angry. Okay, yeah, be angry because your two cars got into each other and beat and banged. Okay, be angry. Do that behind closed doors. Don't do what you did or talk to the media like you did. The biggest idiot I've ever had drive for me. I think you drove for yourself, RC. That could count as an idiot too. So, I mean, I don't know. That's how I see it. I think a lot of people have seen it. He made such a huge stink, and it doesn't look good for RCR. So, that was the big thing that happened. Besides, Denny got kind of frustrated with Ty Gibbs, it seems like, as well as Joey Logano. I could see some feuding going on there, especially since those two guys aren't in there in the playoffs. I think you're going to see a lot of bad blood fighting happen, especially in Xfinity. I think you're going to see that a lot. I think you're going to see. I think that's one of the things you're going to see. I think that's going to probably be more interesting than the actual championship. And I say that because we're at Phoenix. Phoenix is one of those races that you just go out, and if you're leading, you're pretty much going to win this race. I mean, to me, it's been lackluster. I know Dale Jr.'s come out and said, I want this race somewhere else. Let's put it back to Miami. I've made my comments known on this podcast that I wanted at a track that you're only there once a year, like Miami. But let's not make it Miami, and I don't want to make it Dover or something like that because that's too small. That would be kind of fun, I think, but I don't think you're going to get your biggest bang for your buck. Nashville is kind of a lackluster race too, but something, change it up. This is getting old. This is, in my opinion, this is getting like the Coliseum. I think they need to move away from that because that's just silly. Let's put it that way. So let's go ahead and dive into our championship 4 here. We're going to start with the trucks race. We have Grant Enfinger, Ben Rhodes, Carson Hocevar, Corey Heim. I think any of those guys are more than capable of winning this race. Hocevar's riding the hot hand coming in, as well as he's been doing the past few races. We'll see what he can do and how it'll work out for him. And, Corey Haim's been running pretty well too. So it's hard for me. It's hard to tell. You have, Haim running. He won the one race. Carson Hocevar won one race. So, anyway, moving on to Xfinity, because it's hard to talk about this until we see what happens with qualifying, and we'll go from there. Our championship 4 in Xfinity is going to be Cole Custer, John Hunter, Justin Allgaier, Sam Mayer. I think John Hunter's going to win this thing because he's run the hot car all year. But, Chevy runs really well at Phoenix, so I could see, Allgaier coming out. I don't know about Sam Mayer too much. I think Sam Mayer's a little too out there. But going on from there, I'm going to try and pull up the past races and how how it looked from there, so we can see who won. But I think it's going to end up being John Hunter. So Craftsman Trucks Phoenix, our last Phoenix race there, they didn't race there. So this is one of those races that'll be good to see what happens. And these guys go there once a year. The Xfinity, or excuse me, the truck race is so small and how they do this. So Phoenix going on, Sammy Smith won this race back in March, the spring race. Phoenix 1 is what they call it. So, we'll see what happens there. See what can go on. Let's see where everybody else kind of finished here. So Sammy Smith got the win. Ryan Truex second. He had a really solid car. Sheldon Creed, there you go, third. John Hunter 6th. Sam Mayer 11th. I'm assuming Allgaier got into a wreck here. He was in an accident, so who knows what would have happened with him. He did lead 20 laps. Qualifying, if it's any sign of that, Allgaier was second, Custer was first. So, and Custer did get in. I did mistakenly say he wasn't getting in, but he did get in. I think he beat Austin Hill by 1 point or something like that, if I recall. But yeah, I mean, it'll be interesting to see what happens with that one. And then whenever we go into, Phoenix for the Cup Series, our playoff 4, our final 4 are for Phoenix. We have Kyle Larson, Christopher Bell, Ryan Blaney, and William Byron. So you have pretty much all 3 manufacturers represented. I think it's either going to be Byron or Larson. Blaney's running a hot hand. Like I said, Chevy's run really well at this race. Qualifying, Larson was up there. Byron was third. Larson got the pole. Christopher Bell was 5th. Blaney was 8th. So, there's your 4. And then going to the end of the race, William Byron won it. Blaney second. So Larson was 4th, Christopher Bell 6th. So this looks like it might be a good race. Just kind of doing a quick look at everything. But, you look at the stages, Larson and Byron up there. It's all William Byron and Larson. They swapped it on the stages. So it's one of those that it's going to be a fight off pit road that's going to pull everything and see how it handles. So, I mean, I don't know. I'd like to see Blaney or Bell win, but all signs for me are pointing that it's going to be Byron that's going to win this thing. I think it's his Hendrick year, swan song Hendrick year. So, we can see how everything plays out with that. I don't know. It's going to be hard to tell. But moving on, let's go ahead and jump into different things. So we already heard Sheldon Creed is moving on allegedly to Joe Gibbs Racing. Eric Almirola Saturday came out and said this is his last year. He is going to be stepping away from the 10 car. There is heavy rumor that it's going to be Noah Gragson going into that 10 car, which I think is awesome. We talked about that. I talked about that on my YouTube shorts, Armchair Crew Chief. So moving into that Cup Series race, some of the drivers are going to be there that are not fully known. You got J.J. Yaley, host of ours, running the 42. 51's going to be Newman. B.J. McLeod's running. This is his final race too, as full-time with a charter, I should say. So we have a lot of ends coming. Kevin Harvick is retiring. His car, it's got the Busch design, but it says Harvick everywhere on it. So, it's going to be interesting to see. Star Wars themes on the 2311 cars. I think those look pretty cool. I'm kind of tired of seeing them, though, because I've seen them all over social media. But when I first saw it, I was like, oh, that's pretty cool. Moving on to that, we have Toyota and Ford are announcing some new cars for their teams going forward. Ford is the only one that has come out and said what their car is. It is going to be the Mustang Dark Horse body. It's a little bit sharper, a little bit nicer looking. To me, it looks pretty slick. It's a little bit more rough edges, so it should help with aero. And then we should be seeing a new Camry coming out soon. And then Chevrolet's the last one. Chevy, people are rumoring that they're going to be coming out with like a Corvette style because they're finishing the Camaro, and I think they're doing an electric Corvette, something silly. I don't know. Anyway, long are the days that you had a sedan style car as your model. So, I think the Dark Horse body looks pretty cool. The wheels and everything, when you look at it versus a GT, slightly larger wheels, thinner tires, so a lot narrower tire on the wall, and so on. So moving on from there, let's go ahead and talk about our racing going on for this week and what you guys can expect. So Thursday, today, that this podcast is going to be going out, nothing's on TV, but we're going to have practice for the Truck Series, and ARCA West is going to be practice and qualifying. This stuff's going to be happening late. We're talking 10 Eastern, so it's 3 hours behind. So, put that in there. 7:10 is when they're going out there. Friday, we have the ARCA West race. That was going to be on Flow Racing at 2:30. Then Truck Series qualifying at 6:05 on FS1. No radio for that one. Xfinity practice is going to happen at 7:05 Eastern on Friday. So that's only going to be streamed on NBC Sports. So you put that back 3 hours. That's 4 Pacific that they're going to be running that. Cup Series practice will be on USA. MRN's got the radio with SiriusXM simulcasting. 8:05 Eastern is practice. And then 10 Eastern, the Craftsman 150. FS1, MRN with SiriusXM. And this is one of those things I don't like. I'm going to go ahead and just stop right here because I'm going to get on my soapbox. I think the truck race is going to be interesting and fun to watch, but not at 10 o'clock. I know they're trying to fit all this stuff in because it's championship and they're stretching it out. I mean, spread it out even more. Run, do some more of this stuff, but it sucks because the Truck Series is going to be running at 10 Eastern on Friday. And I don't want to stay up that late to watch this race because this race is probably going to finish around midnight Eastern. And it's going to be interesting. Hopefully the guys are there calling the races because Fox has been doing a remote broadcast, which I think is silly. I think Fox needs to get people out there to watch this. But, that's going to stink for them, too, because they're going to be on the East Coast watching something on the West Coast. So let's go ahead and move on. So I'm off my soapbox. Saturday, qualifying is going to be 3:30 Eastern on USA, no radio. Then we have Cup Series qualifying on USA, MRN, SiriusXM at 4:35 Eastern. Then our Xfinity Race Championship is going to start at 7 Eastern. So you're talking 4 Pacific. On USA, MRN's got the radio with SiriusXM. And then we're going to be running Cup Series 3 Eastern on Sunday. That's going to be on NBC, SiriusXM. Peacock's going to be streaming it. NBC Sports Plus. The whole get-go. I'm assuming it's going to be on MRN because they haven't put that on there. But usually if SiriusXM is going to be calling it, MRN's got it. And one thing that's kind of cool, guys, if you have SiriusXM and you want to listen to it, you can actually pull the radio broadcast, and more than likely it's just going to be the Championship 4. you can pull their spotter radio and their crew chief radio. What they'll do is they'll play the radio broadcast, and if somebody clicks on the radio to talk, it'll mute or dim that broadcast so you can hear what's going on. And I'm not sure if they do that for the Xfinity race, but that's something pretty cool, especially if you don't have the app going forward. And for select drivers going also in the past, they do this as well. So something fun to kind of look forward to if you have SiriusXM, or even just get the trial for a little bit and you can pull it up. You can pull it up on your phone. You can pull it up in the car on a radio, and that stuff's pretty neat to do. But yeah, we're ending our racing season. We have this final race going on this weekend, these races, and we'll move on. We'll recap that next week, and then we'll go into kind of a little bit of a lull. It won't be as big a podcast, but I'm not going to stop doing these just because I don't want to knock that around and then moving forward. But hey guys, I appreciate it. This has been a long road. Thanks for listening. I hope you like and share this thing and get some more people listening to this. Also, I am developing a website still in its infant stage. It's going to be armchaircrewchief.site, so you can go on there and see some things and see how it's going to go. It's more or less just going to be a landing page for the podcast, but it's another spot that you can go and check it out and listen, and I might put some stuff in on the blog going forward on there. But armchaircrewchief.site, and it's legit, it's legal, it's not any sketchy stuff. Somebody apparently had armchaircrewchief.com, so we'll go from there. But anyway, guys, I appreciate it, and we'll catch you next week. Have a good one.